In 1969, humanity did something that seemed impossible. We sent people to another world and brought them back. But what most people don't know is how close this mission came to failure. This is not just a story about technology. It's a story about fear, pressure, and the greatest gamble humanity has ever made. The journey to the moon began with a rivalry. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union were competing for power, influence, and prestige. When the Soviets launched the first satellite into space, the world was stunned. A tiny, beeping sphere orbiting the Earth changed everything. Suddenly, the vast emptiness above our heads was no longer neutral ground. Space had become the next battlefield, a new frontier in the silent war of ideologies. The question on everyone's mind was, who would conquer it first? The pressure mounted as each side raced to outdo the other, pushing the boundaries of science and human endurance. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy made a bold promise that would define a generation. In a speech to Congress, he declared that the United States would commit itself to achieving the goal, before the decade was out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. It was an electrifying statement, but to the engineers and scientists tasked with making it happen, it sounded like science fiction. At the time, the technology barely worked. The U.S. had only just managed to put a man in space for 15 minutes, not send one 250,000 miles away. Many of the most brilliant minds in the country believed it simply couldn't be done. The promise had been made, but the path to fulfilling it was completely unknown. The path to the moon was paved with mistakes, heartbreak, and immense sacrifice. The early years of the space program were a brutal lesson in the unforgiving nature of rocketry. Rockets exploded on the launch pad in fiery spectacles. Missions failed in orbit, leaving astronauts adrift. And most tragically, astronauts lost their lives during routine ground tests. A stark reminder of the danger involved even before leaving Earth. Every failure cost millions of dollars and pushed the timeline further back. The public's faith wavered, and the pressure on the engineers was immense. But quitting was never an option. For every setback, there was a renewed determination to learn, to rebuild, and to push forward, no matter the cost. To reach the moon, humans had to build the most powerful machine in history, the Saturn V rocket. Standing taller than a 36-story skyscraper, it was a true colossus, an engineering marvel of staggering proportions. Its engines were so powerful that during launch, they would shake the ground for miles around, creating seismic waves that felt like a small earthquake. This incredible machine was composed of more than 3 million individual parts, and every single one had to work perfectly. Here's the truly terrifying part. Due to its sheer complexity and cost, the Saturn V had never been fully tested in an all-up configuration before its first crewed missions. There was no backup. It had to work on the first try, or it would be a catastrophe of unimaginable scale. In July 1969, 3 men climbed aboard that very rocket. Their names would soon be etched into history. Neil Armstrong, the stoic commander; Buzz Aldrin, the brilliant pilot; and Michael Collins, the lone sentinel who would orbit the moon. As they strapped into their seats atop this giant, controlled explosion, they knew there was a very real chance they might not come back. The mission planners had calculated their odds of survival, and the numbers weren't entirely comforting. Back on Earth, an estimated 650 million people, the largest television audience in history, were watching. The entire world held its breath, united for a fleeting moment, as the final countdown began. The journey to the moon was one thing, but landing on it was another challenge entirely. As the lunar module, the Eagle, descended toward the surface, everything started to go wrong. Alarms began blaring inside the tiny cockpit. The flight computer, which had less processing power than a modern calculator, was overloaded with data and threatening to shut down. Mission Control was on the verge of calling an abort. To make matters worse, Armstrong looked out the window and saw that their automated landing site was a crater filled with massive boulders. Fuel was running dangerously low. With only seconds left before they would be forced to abort or crash, Neil Armstrong took manual control, skillfully piloting the fragile craft over the hazardous terrain, searching for a safe place to land. Then, silence. The alarm stopped. The roar of the engine cut out. Through the crackle of static, a calm voice came from 250,000 miles away. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." The module had touched down on the lunar surface with less than 30 seconds of fuel to spare. A collective sigh of relief swept across the entire planet. Moments later, Neil Armstrong descended the ladder and stepped onto the gray, dusty surface, a place no human had ever been. He uttered the immortal words that would echo through history. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. For the first time, humanity had set foot on another world. But the mission wasn't over. In many ways, the most dangerous part was yet to come, returning home. Armstrong and Aldrin were now stranded on the moon, and their only way back was the ascent stage of their lunar module, a machine that had never been test-fired on the lunar surface. If that single engine failed to ignite, there would be no rescue mission. There was no way to get them. They would be left behind, their fate sealed. President Nixon even had a speech prepared in case of this tragic outcome. Every system had to work perfectly, one last time. Against all odds, it did. The engine fired, lifting them off the moon and back toward their rendezvous with Michael Collins. They were coming home. The moon landing proved something essential about our species. In a time of deep division and conflict, the world came together to witness a shared moment of triumph. It showed that when humans choose to work together to channel their ingenuity, their courage, and their resources toward a single, audacious goal, the impossible becomes possible. The legacy of Apollo isn't just about footprints left in the dust or flags planted on another world. It's a testament to our relentless curiosity and our capacity for greatness. And maybe the most important question isn't whether we went to the moon, but how far we're willing to go next. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as incredible as we do, don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into history. See you next time.